Good morning, everyone. It is very early on a Saturday morning. I'm very sleepy. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. But anyways, I'm going to try and read another story to you. It's from a collection of stories called Odd Jobs, and it's about the Hellboy universe. And the name of this story is Straight, No Chaser. The title is a reference to drinking hard alcohol. If someone drinks vodka, um, and they don't like the taste, sometimes after they do a shot, they will drink a beer to um, to clear their palate, to get the bad taste out of their mouth. And the beer is called a chaser, a chaser. But straight no chaser can also mean where you take the difficult thing without any support or any extra help. So it's kind of maybe a double meaning in this case, taking something straight without any kind of help or support. And it's about a jazz bar, so it's quite an appropriate title. Straight No Chaser by Mark Chadbourne. Brody's is the kind of club you rarely come across these days. You know it the moment you step through those Art Deco swing doors and breathe deeply. It's in the air, soaked deep into the grain of the bare wood floorboards and the scratched tables and the long oak bar, like 70 years of spilled bourbon. It's in the very fabric of that long, low-ceilinged space. Brody's is a club where music matters, where the syncopation celebrates the off-step, skip, and jump of life itself. So in this case, it's using some complicated language, but it's comparing the sound of jazz music to life. Sometimes it's exciting and fast, sometimes it's slow and soothing. You'd never guess it by checking out the finger-snapping, nodding, knowledgeable clientele. They're all dead. But even the dead deserve a nightlife. For a jazz joint of such high regard, it's a little off the beaten track. On the last leg of his journey, Hellboy stood with his back to St. Paul's Cathedral, facing the River Thames as Big Ben chimed midnight, and then raced east to Spitalfields. In the shadow of Nicholas Hawksmoor's mysterious Christ Church, a street visible only for 5 minutes led into the depths of the quarter, where the dead liked to hang out. Clubs and pubs and bars sprawled along a labyrinth of narrow streets and alleys, lit by neon and flickering torches. And there, overlooking a small cobbled courtyard, was Brody's. So it's kind of like Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you cannot see this magical street. And in the case of this story, you can only see it for 5 minutes. And it's a little bit like perhaps the French Quarter in New Orleans, if you know at all about that. It's very interesting, lively area where a lot of music and culture goes on. So that's like this place, but it's for the dead. And it's only visible for a few minutes, and it's very hard to find. I think it's very hard, especially for the living, to find. Hellboy had barely stepped through the door when an elderly man shambled up, grinning broadly. That was partly because most of his mouth was missing, but there was a definite sparkle in his glassy eyes. He wore a sharp if moldy suit in a 1930s style, and a hat pushed back on his head, a beetle nestling on the brim. So it kind of looks like he's smiling, but part of his face is missing. He's like a zombie. He is dead. And he's wearing an old-fashioned suit from the 1930s, and he's wearing a hat, old-fashioned hat, but it's kind of tipped back on his head. This is actually quite fashionable in Japan now. You'll see people riding scooters sometimes, and they have a hat tipped back on their head. But being a zombie, he has a beetle nesting or nestling on the brim. Kind of scary image. There's an insect on his hat. Not much life in here, Hellboy said. You know we've heard that one before, the man chuckled throatily, did a few sprightly steps, then shook Hellboy's hand. Been expecting you, my man. The name's UB Parkhouse. You want a drink? No time. I'm on a deadline. I need the shoes by dawn or a pretty girl gets her wedding day ruined. Big time. That's a dangerous path you've chosen. Those shoes are powerful mojo. They've been lost for a long time, and some mighty important people round these parts don't want them to be found. I've come prepared. On stage, a tall, thin man tapped the microphone. He had pomaded hair and half his face charred to the bone, but he had the pearly smile of someone who thought they were in heaven. The stage lights came on the instant the band began behind him launched into a version of Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. UB snapped his fingers and did another little dance and spin. Hellboy's attention was drawn to a member of the band. Hey, isn't that? Sure is. You know who has all the best tunes. We got some of the finest jazz and blues men ever to grace a stage playing around here on a nightly basis. UB carefully searched the shadowy corners of the club and then whispered, I help you. I'm putting this club, everything, on the line. I know that, Hellboy replied, but I was told you were the only one who could help, and that if I told you why, you'd probably do it. The music was my life, and it's my death too. Without it, stifling a desperate edge in his voice, he examined his dead hands, the desiccated skin, flesh hanging loosely off the bone. Let's just say this whole deal ain't exactly a fat night at Radio City. I think I know what you're going to say, but come on, let's go somewhere quiet. So we don't know why yet, but Hellboy is trying to find some magic shoes, and he's come to see this old jazz man who runs an old jazz club. And the old jazz man is dead, and all of the patrons of the old jazz club are dead as well. A lot of the hard words in this story are explaining things about death, desiccated hands. It looks like a zombie's hand. The skin doesn't look natural like a living human being. The skin is hanging off the bones. UB Parkhouse said that if he helps, he's putting everything on the line. When something's on the line, it means you are risking it. If you're gambling, playing Texas Hold'em or horse racing or something, the money that you bet is put on the line. If you lose the money. In this case, if UB loses in helping find the shoes, if it doesn't work out right, he might lose his club, he might lose his music, he might lose his existence as a zombie. Maybe he'll just disappear. We don't know why yet, but this is what he's implying. So, because he's talking about a secret and